What a lot of people don't get is how important summer scouting has been to my success. The overall majority of my biggest bucks were shot after I located them during the summer or in the fall before season. Well, I scout 24/7. I'm always scouting. So you're hearing rumors, you're going after those rumors, you're going out glassing, you're going out shining, you're going out looking. During the season, you're scouting your way to your stands. I scout 24/7. You know, I'm thinking about deer all the time. But when you get into your summer scouting, I think a lot of people lack. They're out fishing, they're out playing golf, they're out swimming in the pool, hanging with the kids. And really, that's not the time to lack or to relax if you want to kill big bucks. Because the overall majority of my biggest bucks were found by summer scouting. Picked up on a trail camera, seen from a truck, glassed, shined, saw while I was walking. Summer scouting is huge. Those bucks move a lot more during daylight on the edges. They're in a summer pattern. You can find them. Now the biggest mistake people make is they think that, okay, I found this buck, I'm going to kill this buck. He's coming out right here all the time into these beans. Then the season opens, the beans turn yellow, and where's the buck?
Right.
But what it does get you is it gets you in the vicinity. You know there's a buck in that area. Now the rest of your scouting can tell you where that buck's at and where he lives. You can certainly get too aggressive by going in too much, going into those bedding areas in the summer, checking things out. A common mistake is setting up the tree stands right before deer season and tipping the deer's hand that you're coming, that you're after them. Then they shift their patterns. Most of the summer scouting is done from afar. You can set up trail cameras, but you don't set them up in the bedding areas. You set them up on the perimeters and the food sources. You check at the food sources. You put trail cameras on cornfield edges, you know, clover edges, acorn flats, trail crossings, river crossings, funnels, but you don't put those trail cameras in the bedding areas.
Basically just getting an inventory of what's out there.
Summer scouting, glassing, observing, sitting at observation stands, all that has netted me a lot of intel. And over the years, I mean, it isn't easy either. I mean, you don't just all of a sudden you go out shining one day and find a huge buck, or go out glassing fields one day and find a huge buck. You got to work at it. I think the deer have been out here, eh?
Yes, sir.
Look at this. That's just trampled. Even in the summer when they don't have to be back here. They want this protection.
Yes, they do.
And it's pretty evident to me, the more work you put into it, the more results you have. And you really have to work at it to find one of them bucks. But when you find one of those bucks, then you have to work at narrowing that area down and finding them. And what I'll do is I start in July. So in July, I'll start putting some cameras out. I'll start walking some areas, looking at some things, looking at some crop edges for big tracks and stuff, and I'll put this wide net out there. And when I start getting intel, like say I see some big tracks, and the camera goes in there. I try to get a picture. And then I spot a big buck over here. Then I start narrowing focus to where I'm actually seeing intel. And a lot of that intel, maybe I'm looking in spots where I found big sheds. Now I know there's a big buck in there. If he shed his antlers, he's probably still alive. So I'll be trying to locate those bucks, and I'll narrow in on bucks that I know are alive. They're in this area. So now I got this area. Now where? So I went from this huge net to this area, and this area for 3 bucks I'm after. So now I'll circle those areas. I'll look at all the fields around that area, around this area, and around that area, and try to narrow in on those bucks and get a pattern. I'll keep a journal. Where did I see them? What time frames did I see them? All the way up till season. And I'll try to keep track of them from a distance. And then when the season comes along, then I'll move in for the kill and try to put together what I know about the terrain. But I'm not going in there this late in the ball game and scouting bedding areas and kicking deer around and messing it up, I'm scouting from afar. Binoculars, spotting scopes, spotlights, trail cameras.
Glassing from your truck?
Yeah, glassing from my truck, but also glassing from observation stands. Getting into a high spot where you can sit. A lot of times getting away from the road helps a lot. They've got spotlights that got portable batteries on them. You can walk out and shine a remote field. You can go sit a tree where no deer is going to go near it, but you got a view down into another field that you can't see from a road. So there's lots of different kinds of observations.
How often do you shine?
Well, shining's a tough one because it's not going to be legal where everybody's at. In Wisconsin, it's legal, but there's still laws on it. We can shine till 10 o'clock at night during hunting season, but in the summer here we can shine all night long. And then some places do have local ordinances against it, and you have to check that where you're at. Where I'm at, there are no ordinances against it. You can shine all night long, and I'll go out different times during the night and look for bucks, because all I have to do is locate one giant buck on the public land, and I got it.
How many have you gotten that way?
A lot of my bucks have come from that way.
Any specific ones?
My biggest buck I ever shot, that buck, I saw him in July. I didn't kill him that year. It took me 2 seasons to kill him. But I found him and started hunting him because I saw him shining in the middle of the night in July.
Nice.
Otherwise I wouldn't even been hunting that area.
Right.
And then I narrowed in on him, and it took me 2 seasons to kill him, but I ended up getting him in November because of the intel I got 2 years earlier in July.
Did you have him narrowed down that first year, or did it take you 2 years to narrow him down?
I got on him right away, but he got kind of pushed out of the area where I found him. Had to relocate him, and where I relocated him, he was really hard to hunt because he was living in a spot that was surrounded by open grass, and it was really hard to get close to him. I ended up sneaking up on him and with a gun bungeed on my back, crawling,
Oh yeah.
and pulled the gun off my back, stood up and shot him.
Is that the one on Thanksgiving Day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a 12-pointer that was living in this river bottom in this oxbow, and I glassed him during the summer coming out of this oxbow. I watched this oxbow from up on a big hill across the field, across an old overgrown pasture into the public, and he kept coming out of the same spot in this oxbow day after day after day, and right up until season. And then he was a real nice buck, but I was on to some really big bucks, and I had a friend who was really pestering me and stuff, and I wanted to get rid of him, get him tagged out, and then I wouldn't have to worry about that guy. I could worry about me. And I took him and put him on him, and he blew it. My wife's cousin came over right after that first guy.
Right.
Didn't get the buck.
Okay.
And the buck's still on the same routine. I put him in there, and he shot at it and missed, and then he went back home, and the buck kind of disappeared after that. Obviously, you figured that out. So I shifted around, and I saw him coming out of the backside, and at that point, I'd kind of blown my opportunities on the other bucks I was hunting, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to shoot him, because he was a pretty nice buck. And I slipped in on the backside, and he came out of the same bed, but the other way, and I ended up shooting him. And it was all because I observed him during the summer. The biggest bow kill I ever made, well, there's two that are probably equally as big, and that's the giant 11-pointer I shot. That buck, I was walking ridges in August, glassing river bottoms, and that one was in an oxbow too. And that one was coming out of this oxbow, and I was miles from the road. I had to cross a river to get back to where I was. He was coming out of this oxbow, working a scrape, and then he'd move on. There's some other bucks coming out of the oxbow in different spots, and they'd all meet at this scrape, work the scrape, and go off their own way. And I went and I watched him a few different times, even videotaped him a little bit, and on opening day I went in and shot him over that scrape. And it's because I walked back there, glassed, and found him.
Wow.
Now, the buck that got dubbed the 400-pound slob, we don't really know what it weighed. Field dressed, it bottomed out a 300-pound scale. But that buck, I observed that one from a parking lot, and you could see it come out of bedding right alongside the road, right alongside the parking lot. And I'd go in there with my covert car, and I'd glass him out of my covert car. Okay, it's just about sunset, and I'm getting ready to go glassing for deer. I got my binoculars, and here's my truck. I got my Ford sticker on there, my camo, my huntingbeast.com, but it's not the vehicle we're taking. As most of you wear camouflage when you're hunting for the deer, I use camouflage for other hunters when I go glassing. And tonight we're taking my camouflage vehicle. It's a Ford station wagon, and it comes with animal rescue stickers, and I brake for raccoons. You really want to keep other hunters from figuring out where you're hunting. If they see your truck parked in a spot and see you looking out the window with binoculars, they're going to figure out something. They're going to start looking to see what you're seeing. So keeping it on the stealth side is a good idea. And watch this thing get out of his bed, and there was two bucks. One was about 140 class 10-pointer, which is really nice, and then there was this one, which was just a monster. And they both meet at the same scrape. They come out of two different bedding areas, cross this little ditch, and work this scrape, and then go about their way. And it had a weird wind at that spot, and it was hard to get in there. And then when the wind was finally right and I slipped in there, first the 10-pointer came out of his bedding, stopped at that scrape. I passed him. I had him at 8 yards.
Wow.
Let him walk by, and I'm watching him walk by thinking, I probably shouldn't have let that deer go. And out of the corner of my eye, I see a ripple in the water. The water was high in the ditch, and I look, and he's crossing the river to me. He walks right up at me face to face to 8 yards, turns broadside, and I shot him at point blank.
Unreal.
But again, it was because I observed him out glassing and stuff before season.
Right.
And that's a reoccurring theme with most of the big bucks that I've shot. And I take that back. It isn't with most of the deer I've shot. I see more good bucks during rut. I could kill more big bucks during rut. But when you get to that next age class, the giant class, when you get to that 5, 6, 7-year-old class, most of those deer that I've shot were shot early season and were observed before season and then shot during season.
Learn their pattern.
Or they were shot during season even if it was later because of what I learned during the summer. Right now is a key time for anybody that wants to kill big bucks.